Hi, this is Allan Dalton, and I have what I hope is a very relevant message, especially considering the changes that have been imposed, if you will, upon the real estate industry. And the reason they were imposed upon the real estate industry is because a group of attorneys basically brought a class action suit against the industry. And because of that, the way in which real estate professionals will communicate their value moving forward will be significantly altered. And not only that, hundreds of millions of dollars in the form of judgments were brought against the real estate industry, and the industry now is responsible for paying these significant sums. All of this, or none of this, would have happened, in my opinion, were it not for two words. Those words being contingency fees. Contingency fees. Now, we all know that words matter, but sometimes not everybody executes with that belief in mind. And so attorneys understand that there's no way that these plaintiffs, or plaintiffs in general, in certain types of cases, would be able to come up with the funds, take the time to be able to bring a lawsuit on their own because they couldn't fund it if they were responsible for the expense. So law firms and lawyers very intelligently, and I think and very fairly, said, hey, look, we'll absorb all of the expense, the time, and our compensation will be conditional, circumstantial, or contingent upon a successful recovery, and then we'll get a percentage. And the percentages, if you do the research, are typically between 30 and 40%. In many states, the percentages are capped. I know in Missouri, it's 33%. I think New York is 33%. Massachusetts, I think it's 40%. So this is all very regulated and very professional. But it's instructive that attorneys don't talk about their commissions, don't always talk about their fees, but in some circumstances where it applies, they talk about contingency fees. I think every single real estate agent incessantly has come to this conclusion. I have to do all of this work, and especially with buyers, because buyers are less willing to buy percentage-wise, or end up buying less than listings end up selling. And I have to do all of this, this is you thinking, I have to do all of this without any guarantee of compensation, and all at my expense. You live that every day of the week, every day of the year in some cases, but the words contingency fee, you're not going to find them in forms and listing agreements and purchase contracts, because the industry has never thought in terms of memorializing this. But nothing matters till you make it matter, because while you are painfully aware of all of the sacrifice and expense, the public's not sympathetic to this. The public has their own agenda. So nothing matters till you make it matter. Now, there's a difference between legal contingency fees and real estate fees that are contingent, if we want to say that, even if it's not technically being said that way, because most of these plaintiffs are so jubilant that somebody's going to absorb the expense and make the suit possible, and they realize that without this assistance from the lawyers, there could be no suit. That isn't always the case in real estate with buyers. More than ever, buyers, I believe, I may not be right, but I'm convinced, are going to be thinking, I don't really need a buyer agent. I can go directly to the listing agent. I can go directly to the open house. Geez, on these websites, they have the listing agent next to the property right now. And so therefore, the way in which real estate professionals explain their fees, even as fees that are contingent upon circumstances, is going to take more effort. For example, the attorneys may not have to break down and itemize all of the reasons for the fee. They may not have to say, this is what it costs for discovery. This is what it costs for putting together a brief. This is what it costs for the filings. This is what it costs for witnesses. Okay, this is what it costs for experts, connected experts, or for the court preparation, or the presentation in court, and so forth, or the administration. They don't have to go into that level of detail because their clients are overjoyed that they're taking on all of this risk. Buyers may not see it as a great risk if they don't use a buyer agent. That's why two things. Buyer agents more than ever before have to show their value, all of the touch points, okay, in terms of access, exposure, negotiating, helping them basically see what the asset could be converted to in terms of an investment, and so forth and so on, and all of the home-related services, and also the fact that they're not just being compensated based on an episode. Why? Because a home could sell in a day, could be $1 million home, and some buyers may not think that the compensation was deserved because they're not aware. You're aware, but they've got to be made aware. You're not just being compensated based upon the event. You're being compensated by years of experience, market knowledge, skill, training, coaching, sacrifice, expense. So, and you also have to internalize your value, that the buyer agent may have to have more community knowledge, more construction knowledge. Negotiating is a wash, but they may have to provide greater home services in terms of that, and maybe spend more time with the buyer with even greater uncertainty and more expense in many cases in terms of their time. So that means that not only do they have to show great value as a buyer agent, you do, but also you have to have a compensation story, because most buyers are not going to intuit or just naturally understand or celebrate that they don't have to pay anything if they don't find the right home. They don't have to pay anything if the home doesn't pass inspection. They don't have to pay anything if the home doesn't appraise out. They don't have to pay anything if they don't get a mortgage. They don't have to pay anything if the seller's compensation matches or exceeds what the buyer has committed to. These are all circumstantial. They're contingencies. Buyers more than ever are going to want to understand what you do and the value of what you do. And I believe it's a lot easier to basically give a buyer comfort and be transparent by letting them know all of these contingencies. And I think some people might be overlooking that. Hope this helps.